All right. Two big things this week, I think, unless I'm missing something. We had PCO over the weekend. Big event, record breaking. And then we have the actual topic at hand. What content can we attach to tournaments to make them more interesting? Or what can we do to tournaments to make them more interesting? I think this is a pretty interesting topic. Personally, I think Tetris tournaments can be made more interesting by making them a life or death situation. Oh yes, the super lobby. I heard of 4-wide room rounds. Kick all PPT signups. Blarg are better. Why don't you just beat Blarg? Why did I say that? They're not too far off. Amateur tournament for PPT. Very interesting. Hashtag we want Blarg. I would have taken the free win over Blarg's almost DQ at PCO 10. Yeah, that happened at PCO 10. Blarg almost DQ'd to the Charlie pop-off when I win. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. We had PCO 10. PCO 10 Volume 2 was crazy. Very big tournament. Very large. Our most entrants since PCO 3.0 plus 1.0. We got one more player than PCO 7 Switch. We had the most grand finals viewership ever. And the highest average viewership. It was a really good tournament. I don't think anyone expected it to go that hard. Even I didn't, as like the main organizer. And I'm very happy with that performance, man. I said it on Twitter. I'll say it on video. All right. I don't know how many people we have here, but you at home, if you think Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 is dead, you're a fucking idiot. Or I said something to that regard on Twitter, because it's not. It's definitely not. I'm gonna fact check this before I say this out loud. So, I can now confidently say this. PCO 10 Volume 2 outpeaked the last two streamed Tetrio majors. It got more grand final viewers. And I think it had more average viewers than one of them. So I just have to say this right now. If you're still riding the ship and you think that like Tetrio is the only path to getting this game viewed, to sustaining people playing this game, you're just wrong. You're not correct, man. I wouldn't bring this into a what game is better or worse scenario. I'm just saying that they all have the possibility to pull viewers. She doesn't have his waifus yet. People can just put their own waifus on the screen, Zudo, alright? You know how the versus screen looks. Those are big pictures. Plus in the last Tetrio Journey poster, there were like two of them. It's definitely not about the individual game anymore. We are at a point, I think right now, where there's no like new game hype going around. There's none of that going on. It's all dependent on the event's marketing. We haven't had a big one like that in a while. I just think I think this one was really done at the right time. Spring always seems to be good for PPT. Another thing that was good is that we were able to capitalize in the advertisement on Uyashoda being there and also Blarg being there. I think I legitimately do think that if they weren't playing, the tournament would have seen a hit. It still would have been the most successful one in a while, I think. We had a lot of people playing, but it's just individual names can also happen. OSW, our advertisement, it's just like you're always there. I think the poster's good because it could be considered PBT art. Yeah. Big shouts again to Kaizalera, by the way. They're like a crazy artist. Like, they need more followers. I'm going to put their Twitter link here right now. Please follow them. Yeah, the character art ones always do better. And Keisler also drew a piece about Uyashoda winning. Overall, I just wanted to highlight while we were here, PCO 10 had a great weekend. It was viewed well. Now, I want to talk into the main point that I want to drone on about for probably about 35 minutes or longer, honestly, here. How do we make our tournaments more entertaining? Because I thought about it after PCO 10, I'm like, man, we got all these viewers, but there's only one special piece of content in that tournament, which was the montage piece that I played at the beginning and the end of all the PCO clips. Big shouts to Mitsuat as well, who gathered a bunch of clips for me. I don't feel like we do enough special things for events. And OSW is a good suggestion, chat with replays. I'm figuring that one out. I'm figuring it out. It will be somewhere soon. I'm going to figure it out. But it's not going to be here probably until May. Just because I need to learn new streaming software for it. And for Square One, I need to use, like... what I've got. And I guess to hone it in now, I'm specifically speaking about content that we can do during the event. Interviews and build-up videos are good for preliminary advertising, sure, but I'm thinking of things to give viewers to watch during a tournament that is not gameplay. Which brings me into something else I wanted to talk about. Beyond the Summit was one of the best organizations at finding ways to do this for their events. Yeah, the Summit ending was sad, man. For those of you who aren't, like, aware, aren't big fans, big organization in esports, Beyond the Summit, just officially held their last event. It closed on Sunday. But yeah, they held their last event, Smash Ultimate Summit 6, which is their 6th in-person invitational. It's like, it's so sad to see them go. Summit inspired so much work that I did. Summit kind of inspired the Reg Evolution formula that I wanted to put on, but we didn't have time. But it did inspire stuff like the Tetris Jeopardy event and all that. How I wanted to run it and put it on. It's definitely inspired by them. They always do great content. They're definitely the best in the game at coming up with event-related content. Then OSW said, I don't think every event should have extra content days. And the thing is, every event doesn't need to have extra content days. I'm gonna bring this up to you all. What do we think of a 2-day online tournament? What do we think of this? What do we think of a 2-day online open where you play pools on your first day and top 32 is streamed entirely on the second day? Because this is just a thought that I have. I feel like production will get exponentially easier because you have a very concrete match schedule. You don't have to like run around and find people, you know? In OSW, the thing is we stream top 32 anyway. It's not like we're not streaming top 32. Like, we're streaming it anyway. At least most of the time. Like, most of the time we end up streaming top 32 regardless. It's just something that happens. Like, you'll get half of top 32 streamed and then all of top 16 streamed on your classic Tetris major. And I guess a better way to clarify is you'd have every match available to stream. Let's say you wanted to stream every match. Yeah, you could go for it. But you could also pick and choose. And you could just put them on a schedule. Like, these guys play top 16 halt, and then the rest of you, you're on stream. It makes it so much easier than trying to do it live on the one-day event. You can definitely run a 2-day event with 32 players. It would just, you'd have to do very clever scheduling. TEC and PPT could. It just depends on how many people enter the event, I guess is a good way to put it. But if you give yourself 2 days to run the event, you have more time to make sure the bracket flows. In addition, you also have more time to add extra content. Because let's say your event's going to take 8 hours total. on and off stream, you can just have that split up between days and then add an hour dedicated to live content and skits. Admittedly, there is a time and a place for this kind of stuff, but there is an option that I think is pretty interesting that was used at 2 recent large Smash tournaments as a prize pool or merch purchasing incentive. You guys will remember Tweak Talks at Ultimate Summit 6 and 4-side fights at Genesis 9. What if one of your first portions of a tournament stream is a podcast? And then after the podcast, you run like top 12. This is something I could see myself doing at a certain event in the future. Like, you take a good podcast roster, like, let's say if you're running like a less serious event, you put Apple Orchard on the mic for like fucking 45 minutes, and then you move on to your regular matches. That could be an interesting incentive to hit. But I do think that there are 2 pretty easy things that you could throw into major events. If you remember the PK community event, there's like trivia. You could have top player trivia, or you could have commentator trivia. You could have that for like 20 minutes. I think people would be relatively interested. And then you have the podcast idea. You can pretty much tack those on anywhere. Then there's like and this, I think, is a big thing to bring up because we don't really have many content event series. Like, we don't really have many summit-style things, I guess you could say. In the terms of where it's a competitive event, but they also put a very big amount of focus into the quality of their content. Like, you don't really have that. And yeah, Summit does have a film crew, but if we're talking like running completely remote, that doesn't immediately become a factor. But I could definitely see myself doing a media day for any future LAN event, or like use my equipment or whatever to film stuff. Then I'll edit a portion of it myself or ship it off to an editor. But I still would love to see skits being done. I know we have funny enough people to write them and make it happen. I just feel like if you're going head into like the skit idea, it needs to be its own kind of special thing rather than, let's say, just slapping it on Tetrio Cup. And I also think there's a point to talk about this. Let's talk about the quad stream. The quad stream is an interesting thing to, I think, bring up in this scenario, because the quad stream itself is a very useful tool. My favorite part about the quad stream is that it will reduce your tournament stream runtime and still allow you to broadcast pools on the screen. However, it also gives you a vehicle to implement this podcast idea like I was talking about earlier. Like, rather than finding a couple of people to commentate the quad stream, just have a podcast segment. Invite a podcast on, or a couple of people who would be good running a podcast style discussion. Have them interact with chat. Just have the gameplay on in the background. Some commentary elitists, and we're finding a way every week to fucking bring up commentary. I hate it. But commentary elitists are gonna be like, oh, it's not focused on the game. You tell me. You tried commentating 3 PPS Tetrio 4 times at once? You think it's really a good idea to put 3 people through the struggle of trying to do all that at the same time? Try it yourself. Walk before you talk. That's all I'm saying. The fact of the matter is, there will be no good Tetris quad stream commentary that focuses on the game. You have to put funny or interesting people on there. Do people even commentate the super lobbies? Like, I haven't watched a hard drop one in so long. Just because it either conflicts or something. Like, is it like, do Blank and Co actually try to make an effort to talk about the game, or is it kind of different, or like do they just chat? But I just think that could be a good way to pivot. Mostly just discussion, yeah. Like that's kind of what I expect. Like, if someone pulls off like a like a really going hard play, I expect them to like talk about that for a bit and then just get back to the topic. I think we're gonna see that shift. And there's also this factor, like how you can really only run a quad stream in one scenario right now. I think you have online Tetrio, and I think that's the only place where you're gonna consistently be able to, like, you know, get it going. Not only do you have the hardware problem, you also have the, like, oh shit, I completed pools on stream in 35 minutes. Like, at that point, it's just like, it's such a little amount of time for the amount of effort it's gonna take to put it together. And in TEC, you run into the same issue, because dear God, you're not running 4 TEC instances on your computer. Like, you're just not getting away with that. You'd run quad stream TEC on switches. You definitely do that, because it allows you to control the rooms more easier and all that stuff. Like, if you're quad streaming TEC, you're definitely using a switch. And then you have the LAN scenario, which is more realistic, but likely the LAN scenario to exploit the most of quad stream content. You'd have multiple games on one quad stream, and that's going to get really weird, especially with how factional this community likes to act. Which is not putting any blame on any specific person, it's just how we work. Like, we are very much in love with our one game, usually, for most casual viewers. They are very much in love with watching their one game, and then they will be like, wait, why are you putting Tetris Effect Connected on here? I want to watch my Tetrio. And then they'll like put sticky notes on the bottom half of the screen or something. So it's just like, you also will run into that problem at LAN, which, like, if you're physically there at the LAN, you're not gonna fucking care what you're watching. But if you're online, that's where it becomes more of a thing. Subway Surfers on the front of that. Oh my god. But yeah, the quad stream is a very useful tool. It's just a limited applicable tool. One thing I'll also say is that any content you do at a LAN versus online is going to be more interesting. Like, having a couch podcast at a LAN, people are probably going to be more interested in watching than an online podcast. So I think we're going to see more of this at LANs, where there are going to be, like, blocks of time to fill. Like, shoutouts to the 1 hour WPL clocks. Like, when that happens, Shen should honestly put, like, 3 people in shares with mics and just get them interacting with the chat. Or just get them talking about topics or recapping the event. That's a much better idea than putting a timer on the screen. I think you only put timers on the screen if you're, like, in 5-minute breaks and you're also running ads. Like, if you're running Twitch ads, or if you're, like, under 5 minutes. If you're taking, like, if you're taking a 30-minute break, you should get at least one person on to recap the event and talk to people about it. And that could be done in combination with a replay reel whenever we get that technology out there. But as for a summary, for what we've been talking about here, we can explore adding multiple days to events. Podcast style in combination with a major could go really well, especially if they're going to talk about analysis or predictions. That could be really good. Talking about predictions and expectations of the event. Trivia would be a good thing to run through. The potential for LAN events to add more content is really huge. It's really big. And charity and gimmick events are some of the best if you're looking to produce standalone, like, live event content. Like, those are the places where you'd want to go. That's basically the summary for this portion of the talk.